Thanks for joining the Lake Anna podcast. My name is Grayson Hoffman. I'm a Lake Anna resident, a Lake Anna real estate agent, and a Lake Anna real estate investor. Our goal here on this podcast is to bring you useful, relevant, and entertaining information about Lake Anna. Today's guest on the podcast is Captain Timothy Luck from the Louisa County Fire and EMS Department. My real estate clients often ask me fire and medical related questions like where are the closest hospitals, how long does it take the fire truck to get here if there's a fire, questions like that. So I thought it would be helpful to have Captain Luck come on the show and address some of those questions. Turns out here at Lake Anna, we are in a very safe place from a medical and fire perspective. Not a lot of fires, not a lot of medical emergencies, but there was a lot of really interesting information that we discussed that I think will be helpful. We discussed a wide range of topics, and those included different medical emergencies around the lake and steps that you can take to avoid them, different fire emergencies around the lake, common causes of the few house fires that have taken place here recently at the lake, and steps that you can take to avoid them. We discussed how incredibly experienced and skilled the emergency responders here around the lake are and how lucky we are to have them. We discuss medical transportation here around Lake Anna, both ground-based and air transportation. And we also discuss how you, if you want to, can get involved as either a volunteer or a full-time EMS responder here at Lake Anna. So thank you again for joining us, and I hope you enjoy this episode of the Lake Anna podcast. Thank you for joining the Lake Anna podcast. Today's guest is Captain Timothy K. Luck, a.k.a. Timmy. Little background on Timmy. Timmy works for the Louisa County Department of Fire and EMS. He has over 15 years of experience with fire and EMS and has held positions ranging from firefighter, paramedic, to volunteer assistant fire chief. Currently, you are the captain of fire prevention and the deputy emergency coordinator here at Louisa County, yeah?
That's correct.
So this means that Timmy is Louisa County's point man for fire prevention activity, which includes public education, site plan reviews, other fire prevention activities. He is also our point man for the county's emergency operation plan and day-to-day emergency management activities, right?
Yes. Yep.
In other professional capacities, he has worked as a professional paramedic in various locations, responding to medical emergencies, providing treatment, transportation for patients who are in bad shape. You've worked as a firefighter for years, a trauma care tech in the emergency department, the emergency room at VCU, right down the road in Richmond. You also worked as a security officer at NAPS, right? North Anna Power Station?
I did for about 6 years.
Wow. We recently had Stuart Morris here on the podcast. Do you know Stuart?
I do.
That was a lot of fun. It was a good podcast. What did you do over at NAPS?
It was security, so access and making sure everybody was safe over there.
Right on. 6 years. You did that job for 6 years?
Yep.
Wow. You've also worked as a fire inspector, other fire roles, and you've got a long list of certifications here. But you're firefighter 1 and 2. Am I saying that right?
Yep. Yes, sir.
And then you're obviously a paramedic, hazmat tech, and some other things. But if you're around here at Lake Anna, if you're lucky, you might spot Timmy at Lake Anna's watering hole, the Lake Anna Tap House, playing trivia and enjoying beers as your wife Samantha serves them.
Yeah, I'll be there a couple times a week.
Good, man. It's good to see you. Thanks for coming down.
Not a problem.
How you been?
Good. Busy.
Good. Busy. Now, you recently got promoted to the captain job. It was just like last year, right?
Yeah, last January, right after the snowstorm.
Okay. Do they still let you out to, wrestle around with fires and that, or are you just pushing paper now?
No, occasionally I get out, and if it's a big fire, most of us in the office will go and help out in some capacity.
Kind of all hands on deck.
Yeah.
Now, you've been in the Louisa County, Lake Anna area for a while.
Yep.
Since birth.
Since birth.
Now, your family's been here for a long time, right?
Very long time.
Tell us about that. How far it goes back? It's generations, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm wrong guy to ask on that one because my grandfather was here before the lake, and his family was here longer than that.
Yeah.
Still in the area.
Now, your grandfather is the legend James Durson, right? He built my family's first lake house back here in the early 70s. And he's, what is he, 92, 95 now?
Like 96, I think.
Wow. And I drive by his house and he's still out. He's outside working the garden, running marathons.
Yeah, he's still getting around.
Yeah, it's amazing. And your mom is Irene, and your dad is also a legend in these parts. Tommy Luck, the former ball player. He's a CPA here, right in town.
He is, yep.
All right. Let's dive in here. I want to go back to your job, as the captain. Tell us about your current job now. What's your day-to-day entail?
So, two sides of my job. It's fire prevention, and so that's that's setting up public education, whether it's reach out or we see something going on we want to be involved in, like the fall festival that Parks and Rec puts on, or any event like that in the community. Also handle the smoke alarm detector program. We do offer some free smoke detectors throughout the county.
What's the smoke detector program? How does that work?
So it's more, it's a request. So you request, and then we can give you one per floor for a smoke detector.
So if I don't have a smoke detector, I can call fire department, Louisa County.
Yeah, you can stop by one of the firehouses. They have them there, and they'll install them for you. It might take us a while because we're busy.
Right. Busy and leanly staffed.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's good for everybody to know. So if you need smoke detectors at your house, they can call you guys and you'll come out and you'll install one on. You said one on each floor.
Yep.
What's your official position on what do you recommend smoke detector wise? Is that one outside? Sometimes you hear one outside of every bedroom, or pretty much just one per floor. Is that enough?
There's a building code that says, I'm pretty sure it says that it's, one in each bedroom and outside of the bedrooms as well.
Okay. Would you recommend them having them elsewhere as well? Does that pretty much cover it?
That pretty much covers it.
Yeah. So, and sorry, I got you off track. You were talking about the smoke detector program, but that was part of your job.
Yeah.
Educating the public.
Yeah, so we do try to do some Facebook, social media pushes every once in a while. Try not to overwhelm people with Facebook,
right.
social media, because that can easily be done.
Still, it's a good platform.
Yeah. Good
communication platform to get safety info out.
In charge of the dry hydrant program, which is a Department of Forestry program that is puts in dry hydrants. So these are hydrants like out here at the lake, the white pipe that sticks up next to some boat docks and boat ramps that we can hook up to and draft from the lake if we need to. They're throughout the county. It doesn't have to be at the lake.
So you're calling it a dry hydrant?
Yeah, because there's no pressure on it. There's no water pumped to it. We have to actually use our fire trucks to get water.
So how does a fire hydrant work normally, like in a city, so we know what to compare it to?
Yeah, so in the city, you go out there and the fire department hooks up or can turn it on, and without a fire truck, water comes out, just like you turn your faucet on in your house.
It's pressurized.
Yep.
In the city water.
Yep, city water.
Okay. So we don't, that's interesting, some out here at Lake Anna and rural areas like Louisa, we don't have that.
We have them
in the town?
In the towns, we have them. Zion's Crossroads, Mineral, Louisa, Shandor Crossing has their own system out there. Some local systems have them.
Okay.
And
those are pressurized fire hydrants.
Yes, sir.
But at the lake, around the lake, we don't have those.
No, we
have these dry hydrants.
Install a dry hydrant, or we have hoses that we can drop in the lake and get water from the lake without one.
Interesting. So I think I've seen, in fact, I know I've seen the dry hydrants around. You see in some of the common areas, the water access areas in some of these subdivisions, and it's like a big PVC pipe coming out. So what are we looking at there? What's on the back side?
So in the water, it's just a pipe that goes out to a certain depth to give us enough water to get, so we don't create a vacuum and suck air from the atmosphere, because I think it has to be 2 feet all the way around that pipe.
Okay.
So we don't pull mud up from the bottom
or
pull enough pressure where there's actually a whirlpool that we're sucking atmospheric air into the pipe, even though it's underwater.
Okay. So if there's a fire 3 blocks, 4 blocks from the water, you guys would respond, go out there, and you hook up to the dry hydrant. Now, you're not actually hooking up a fire hose that goes to the fire itself.
No,
you're loading up the truck with water.
Yeah, we normally will put an engine, what we call an engine there. That's their main job is to pump water. So they'll pull water, and tanker trucks will come by and fill up off that engine. Or if it's close enough, we'll drop hose from.
If it's close.
Yeah.
Yeah. How close would it have to be for that if you're going to just drop hose?
When we average about 1,000 feet of hose on each truck for supplying water. So.
Can you hook hoses together?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you could go 2,000 or 3,000 feet?
Yep.
Where's the pressure coming from on that?
The pump on the truck will create the pressure.
Okay. So if it's a few blocks from the water, you can probably just do a direct connect to it.
Yep.
Otherwise, you're filling up a pump truck.
Yep.
And then the other trucks are coming and they're filling up off that.
That's correct. And
Man,
it can be.
That's pretty involved. You guys practice that?
Yeah. We practice it and it gets used a lot, unfortunately. But the farther you are away from your water source, the more tankers you need just to make the loop.
Right. No, I bet. So there are dry hydrants like that throughout the lake.
Yep.
At the common areas. Are they pretty much only at the common areas? Is that where you find them, or are they in some other spots?
Mainly at the common areas, because we can get to those most common areas pretty easily, and it's not really affecting anybody.
Mm-hmm.
If we pulled down your driveway and blocked up your driveway, you might not be too happy with us when you come out.
Right.
And need to leave. But
that's interesting. So in your job so far, we've talked about, kind of the fire related stuff. What other supervisory, kind of duties and authorities do you have on the fire side? So you've done some training, the smoke detector program. Do you have any, kind of professional relationship with the firehouses themselves?
Yeah, I mean, we go out and, talk to the chiefs, the volunteer fire chiefs, and our crews in the station. I'm out there probably once a week or so. I like to be out there more, but I've got other duties to do. But
so now's probably a good time to maybe just quickly describe the structure of, Louisa County Fire EMS, how it's set up. I think you mentioned volunteer in a moment. So it sounds like it's a combination, at least for Louisa County here, where a large portion of the lake sits in Louisa County.
Yep.
It's a combination of professional paid fire EMS guys and women, but I just say guys, as well as volunteers.
Yeah, so the counties, as most people know, it's like 510 square miles that we're responsible for. There's 7 firehouses right now and 3.
We're talking about just Louisa County.
Just Louisa County.
7 firehouses.
7 firehouses, 3 volunteer rescue squads. We have 78 career members and then about 250 volunteers throughout the county.
What's a career member?
So that's somebody that comes to work and gets paid for what they do.
Okay. So you got 78 full-time employees, basically.
Yep.
And I know, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's been a shift over the years. There used to be a division between fire and medical, right? You had your firefighters, and then you had your EMTs and your paramedics. Have they started to kind of merge together more into one now?
Yeah, career staff is 100% cross-trained, so whether everybody's a firefighter, and then there are different levels of EMS, whether they're EMT, what we call trauma level, which is like between EMT and a paramedic, and then we have paramedics.
Okay. So at the top are paramedics.
Yep.
Are there different levels of paramedic training and certification?
Yeah, still in state. Nationally, there's not. State, there is. So there's what we call paramedic and intermediates in the state of Virginia, and then there's traumas and EMTs.
Okay. Is an intermediate a type of paramedic?
Yep, type of medic.
Okay. Obviously, the paramedic requires the most training, and then an intermediate, and then an EMT. And there's 2 levels of EMTs,
There's
said?
what they call a trauma level or advanced EMT.
Okay.
Which is an add-on to your EMT.
Okay. And then you've got the basic EMT level. Okay. So all of the firefighters in Louisa County, they're all also medics, or they just have one of those?
One of those.
Is that an application, requirement, employment
Nope.
requirement to
Nope,
have one?
We'll take people straight off the street and
Okay.
give them all the training they need if that's that's what we have to do.
Interesting. So you guys will train folks.
We'll train. Yep.
If you're applying, do you have to have one or the other, or you'll
No,
train
it's
folks
all-
completely?
It's all depends on what we need. So if we only looking for like one or two, and we have trained people in the application process, then occasionally they'll hire those over top of the ones that aren't trained. But if we have, nobody that's trained and we need people bad enough, and we'll put you through training.
Interesting. You guys hiring right now?
Yep, always.
You're always hiring?
Not always positions open.
There's always positions
Yep,
open.
the application process is open. We are, I think May 1st. I'll have to check on that. But May 1st, we're closing our application process for a couple more spots that we need to fill.
Okay. Oh, but you're actively accepting applications now up until, sounds like,
I think May 1st.
May 1st
is
around there.
What I've heard. But
Awesome. So backing up to, you were saying a moment ago that there are 7 stations around Louisa County. And then you said that there are 3 volunteer stations?
volunteer rescue stations.
Rescue stations.
They're just running ambulances.
They're only doing medical?
Yep.
Okay. Now, are those stations, are they located where one of the 7 are, or are they completely independent?
No, they're located. So the 7 stations for fire: Zion's Crossroads, Louisa, Trevilians, Mineral, Holly Grove, Locust Creek, and Bumpus.
Okay.
The rescue stations are in Louisa, in Bumpus, and Holly Grove.
Okay. But those 3, are they physically located where a fire station also is, or are they by themselves?
They're by themselves. Yeah, they're in their own building.
Interesting. And those are strictly volunteer?
That's correct.
And then on the fire side, it sounds like in the 7 stations, it's a blend of volunteer and full-time guys.
Yeah, in all but 2 stations right now, we have career in the firehouses.
Okay, so 2 of them are strictly volunteer then?
Yep.
Which ones of those are closest to the lake? Which ones respond to stuff out here at the lake?
So right now, around the lake, I guess the southeast end of the lake would be Bumpus. The central part of the lake, like Johnson Road, Mitchell Point, Dixon Store, right now is Mineral. And then Trevilians picks up like Bibb Store area. People really don't think of that as a lake, but there is some Peach Grove area of the lake.
Way up.
Yep.
Okay. And that's being served by Mineral?
By Trevilians.
By Trevilians.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Interesting. Okay, so that's kind of the structure. And at each firehouse, like, what's the authority structure like? How does that work?
So each firehouse has a volunteer set of officers, which range from a fire chief, assistant fire chief, on down to lieutenants and sergeants, depending on how their bylaws are set up. And then those that have, there's 3 stations that have career lieutenants in them.
Okay.
To kind of talk back and forth between everybody.
Your brother is a full-time guy, right?
He is.
John?
Yep.
He's at the Louisa station?
He is.
Well, what's his job? Is he a lieutenant?
He's a lieutenant.
He's a lieutenant. All right. Very cool. So there are 3 counties. The lake sits in 3 counties: Orange, Spotsylvania, and Louisa. How does coordination, out at the lake work? How does coordination work with the other counties? Do you guys ever, overlap or help each other? Or?
Yeah, so something on the lake, we normally work with Spotsylvania. They have everything. We're south of the old North Anna riverbed, and they're north of the old riverbed, and then Orange fills in like Pamunkey.
And when you say the riverbed, you mean the one actually running right through the middle of the lake now? Okay. Wow. How do you know where that line is?
GIS mapping.
So if something goes down on the water, do you all, let's say that there's an event, let's say that a boat catches on fire, or like I'm here on the Louisa side, let's say my boathouse caught on fire. Does Louisa County, do you guys respond? Well, let's start with the boat example. Let's say I'm out on my boat. my boat catches fire. Somebody calls 911 and says there's a boat on fire. Who responds to that?
So the big thing is what side of the lake you're on. So if it's on the cold side, the public side, it would be probably a combination of Louisa and Spotsylvania.
Okay. Let's say you're on the private side.
Then it's all Louisa. Unless
it's all Louisa.
Spotsylvania would have to take their boat out the water and come over and help us if we needed them.
Okay. So does Louisa have watercraft that you use in responses?
Yep. We have currently is a pontoon boat that's owned by Lake Anna Rescue.
Is it outfitted with like huge machine guns that shoot water?
No, I'm not sure what's on theirs, but and then there's just a rescue boat that's at the boathouses at the tap house.
Oh, it's a tap house.
Yeah.
Okay. So you guys have, and that's Louisa County's? Mm-hmm. So Louisa County has a rescue boat ready to go at the tap house. And it can be launched from there. So is this why you spend so much time at the tap house? You're actually working.
Yeah.
You're sitting there. You can have a cold one while you wait. Yeah. Something happens.
No, I wish.
You're off.
I wish, but no.
That's good to know. That I didn't know that there was a boat sitting there.
Yeah, and then the sheriff's office has two boats as well. So they have one.
Louisa County Sheriff's.
Yep.
So they can go too.
They have one on the hot side and one on the cold side. Yep.
Okay. And then obviously, if there is something on the shoreline, then you're just taking vehicles.
Yep.
Vehicles there. Right.
Yeah, I mean, either way, there's going to be vehicles coming.
Okay. Even if it's out on the water, you get a vehicle just as close as you can get. Okay. Okay. I know that it doesn't seem like there are too many fires. Don't seem to happen often out here, like house fires. Is that right?
Not much. They happen, but luckily not often.
Not often. Yeah. I don't hear about them too much. I want to just take a minute and better understand, what happens on your end, on the fire end, when a call comes in. Let's say that there's, a house fire in Louisa, a waterfront home out here that, reports if someone calls in that there's smoke, or 911 call, boom, the call is placed. Where does that call go, first of all? Who answers that phone?
So it's our dispatch center in the town of Louisa in the county office building. They'll answer it and then get information from you, address, return phone call in case something happens where your phone, drops, or and then they'll dispatch based on the call. You tell them what's going on. So, an EMS call, you get an ambulance, and then structure fire, you get 4 fire companies and a medic unit.
So when you say so the dispatch receives the call, and then you say it's dispatched. What does that mean? What happens?
They set a set of tones off, and then
What are tones?
So it's just noises on the radio that alert either pagers or our firehouses of what's going on.
Okay, so there's an audible alert that happens. Yep. Are there different tones that mean different things, or is it just a standard tone?
So it's a different tone for each department.
Okay.
So
okay,
those departments, so those members know, and the station alerting will go off. So the bells and whistles in the firehouse will wake our guys up, or volunteers up, or catch their attention to know that something's going on they need to listen to. Okay,
so let's say you're a firefighter at the mineral station. The tones go off, bells go off. And I'm assuming, you just tell me what happens next. Are they running right to the truck, or do they go somewhere to receive the information first?
They're going right to the truck, getting their turnout gear on if it's needed, getting in the apparatus.
What's the turnout gear?
So it's the bunker gear, the protective clothing that they wear for a fire.
So putting their fire stuff on.
Yeah. And then they get the information 2 ways. They'll mark up on the radio, and dispatch will give them the information. And now we have laptops and iPads in the apparatus where they can see exactly what's going on, what the dispatch is entering, and who's coming, and water source, and everything.
Interesting. Okay. So everybody basically gets their gear on, hops in the truck, and I guess the laptop sitting there tells the driver where to go.
Yep.
So that's when he's getting it first, and he's going.
Yep.
And then I guess there's some type of, is it being communicated over the radio on the way, or is the driver reading out to everybody what's going on? How does everybody in the truck learn where they're going and what's going on?
So the dispatch will communicate over the radio, and then the officer will give them directions on what they want to do when they get there. So it's different assignments if you're first on scene versus when you're third on scene. So,
Okay.
to what that truck does.
Okay. So there's someone in command as you're going, making decisions about who's going to do what when you get there?
Yep.
Okay, interesting. And then you arrive, and it just kind of depends on what's going on.
Yep, exactly.
In the last couple of years, have there been house fires at Lake Anna, at least on the Louisa side?
Yeah, we've had several over on the Louisa side.
There was one recently in the Waters, right?
That's correct.
So the Waters is one of the larger subdivisions in the lake. It's on the private side, just off Kentucky Springs.
Yep.
And what happened there? What do you know about that?
So that was about 5 o'clock in the morning. It looks like
House fire.
house fire. Looks like the fire started probably outside the structure from something, and
Okay.
moved inside. And luckily, everybody was able to get out.
So
No.
so the folks, this was not I don't know if it was a secondary home or not, but people lived there.
Yep,
At the time they were there. This was at 5 a.m. Okay, and they got out.
they got out.
Any idea how they were alerted to the fire, or they got out?
Actually,
I heard about dogs.
Yep, I think
Somebody said dogs.
talking to the homeowners, it sounded like the dog woke them up to go out, and then that's when
Wow.
they noticed that it was on fire.
Wow, so the homeowner reported that.
Yep.
Wow. No smoke detectors.
So outside, there's no smoke detectors, right? So the fire got into the attic, which is above your smoke detectors.
Oh, man. So should we be putting smoke detectors in the attic and outside?
Yeah.
As soon as this is over, I'm going to put smoke detectors on my back deck and in my attic.
Yeah, the problem
Just
is the smoke detectors, the companies won't recommend them for the attic because of the high heats.
Interesting.
So if they can't say they're reliable in the attic.
Okay. So if they get really hot,
Yep.
their detection mechanism
May not
work as well. Interesting.
Or work too well and go off every time.
Wow. So it sounds like what may have happened was fire started outside,
Yep.
back deck or something like that. Dogs alerted the owners,
Yeah.
and they got out. From the firefighting perspective, what happened?
So our units got there pretty quickly. I don't know the exact time, but the first unit got there and the house was fully involved, and they went to work. And
Any Lucks there? John Luck?
yeah,
You?
I was. My brother was there later, and then my dad actually
All three
was
of you?
very close to the house. So
That's right, because they just live right down the road.
They do.
Did he respond?
He
Or?
did, yep.
Wow. Okay, so you actually went to the one at the Waters. And which truck were you in?
So I have a take-home vehicle, so I came in that and
Okay.
was able to assist with command and some other duties.
Okay. So the tones that you talked about a minute ago woke you up
Yep.
at 5 a.m. Or were you at the tap house?
Nope.
All right.
At home,
So you're
in bed.
so you're at home and you go. By the time you get there, was a big truck already there?
Oh, yeah, they beat me by several minutes.
Okay.
So
Okay. And when you arrived, what did you see? What was the condition of the home?
the house was still on fire, so we actually set up water supply from a dry hydrant in the neighborhood and
Wow.
started shoveling water.
Now, this particular house, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was out almost by Kentucky Springs.
Yeah, it was just probably a quarter mile off of Kentucky Springs. You could see it from the
Right.
road.
Is there so up at the front of the Waters, there's those ponds.
Mm-hmm.
Is there dry hydrants by those ponds, or did you have to go all the way to the common area?
Nope, there's one in one of those ponds.
Oh, man. Whoever thought about that? It was a good
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah, I don't know who did that, but it
You
wasn't
should
me.
have just taken credit for it right then.
That was
me.
there before I got here. So
That's a fantastic
Yep.
idea. So, and did they shuttle water, or did they just go direct
no,
line?
we shuttled water on that one.
Okay. So when you got there, was the house, completely engulfed, or was it just part of it on fire?
It was pretty much still completely engulfed. They were
Wow. They were working it.
trying to get it out.
Man. Was it eventually extinguished?
Mm-hmm.
How long did it take, roughly?
Normal house fire takes probably 3 hours from time we're dispatched to the time we're back in service.
Okay. You feel like this one kind of fell in line with normal, or
Yeah, I mean it's
faster?
probably a little longer because of the size of the house and how far the fire had gotten before anybody really realized what was going on.
Wow.
So,
wow. Thank goodness for those dogs.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. Okay, so after a fire like that, after any house fire, I guess there's probably some sort of investigation.
Yeah, so we the fire department has to make what they call an origin and cause determination, whether it's by a trained investigator or by the fire chief or command. State law says that every fire has to have an origin and cause. We do that through a fire report.
Origin and cause.
Yeah, origin and cause. So I'm the fire investigator for the county right now, the only one. So my job really is to figure out if it's intentional or accidental or anything in that nature. And then if it's accidental, we leave it for the insurance investigators. Normally your insurance will send out an investigator because they want to figure out why your house burned down before they spend a bunch of money to rebuild it. And if it's on purpose or intentional, we'll call state police and they'll send an investigator out.
Arson investigators.
Yep. And then
Interesting.
There are investigators for the county.
Okay. There's county law enforcement, or it's state police?
State police, yeah.
State police arson investigators.
Yep.
Okay. But you have particular training in
I can
cause. Basically, you're driving at origin and cause.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. What was that training like? Where did that happen?
It was in Hanover, and it was 4 weeks long, every day for 4 weeks.
Okay. So now, anytime there's a house fire in Louisa County, do you go and do that origin and cause investigation?
Yep, if I'm available and around, I'll go. And it may not be that day. It may be a couple days later.
Right. Was an origin and cause investigation conducted at the Waters?
Yep.
On this one? You did that one? Mm-hmm. Interesting. And did you do that like when you were there at that moment, or was it at a later time?
Yeah, so I did one when I was there and just determined that it was, accidental.
It was accidental.
And left it for the insurance investigator and came back later with them because I'm new and want to get the experience.
Yep.
Going with somebody that's more trained. And
it's helpful, I think, for everybody listening and for me. And we'll get into more of this later, but I think it's helpful to, identify possible causes of house fires and likely causes and common causes so that, we can not do knucklehead things to set our own houses on fire. And in the process of that, and I guess in the process of you doing an investigation, is it process of elimination? You're kind of going through.
Yeah. So, the way you approach a fire is, start from outside in, or least damage to most damage.
Okay.
So you're looking at what they call fire patterns. So you're looking at how the smoke traveled through the house, how the fire traveled through the house. Of course, the most damage normally means that's probably closer to where the fire started, not always.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you kind of look for. You take pictures as you go in case you knock something over or something falls down.
Right.
You have evidence that, hey, this is what I was looking at. But
interesting. On this fire, did it look like it started, you said, from the outside?
That's what it looked like, yep.
There was more damage outside, and that's just because the fire burns longer?
Well, no, it's not always. So this house had more damage inside, but we could explain the fire travel to say it started outside.
Okay. So with this particular fire at the Waters, were there, and I know you said you didn't reach a firm conclusion, you just handed it off to the insurance companies that are investigating it. But when you were over there, were there any suspected causes or likely that you had, kind of in your head?
Yeah, we always go in thinking, it's either electrical or not. You have to rule them out. You have to rule out that it wasn't caused by electricity. It wasn't caused by a lightning strike. It wasn't caused by somebody with a lighter. Like, you have to rule out things. And if you can't rule something out, then it's probable or possible that could be the cause. So you may, at the end of an investigation, you might have 3 things that it's possible. It may be because you left the grill on. It may be because the outlet sparked. It may be because somebody lit it on fire. You don't know. Always. So,
did you guys at that particular fire at least narrow it down to a couple potential causes?
We did.
What were those?
Yeah. So We couldn't rule out like discarded smoking materials. We couldn't rule out.
You could not rule out smoking material like a cigarette or cigar or something.
Cigar. Couldn't rule out electrical, and then nothing says it didn't start inside the wall, and because we couldn't get inside to really look hard. So.
Right. So takeaways from that fire. Do you have any of potential causes? Obviously, things that you smoke can start fires.
Well, obviously, your cigarettes, if you smoke outside, be sure you put them somewhere and make sure they're out. But also like your leaf litter around your house.
What do you mean leaf litter?
So like when in the fall, when your trees lose all the leaves, they blow up against the house. If you're not careful, like Virginia has the fire season as well. So tomorrow is supposed to be 50-mile-an-hour winds. Yeah. So if a fire starts in a neighborhood and before you know it, it could be your house.
Yeah, and those leaves go up fast, especially when they're dry. So be careful with your leaf litter around your house.
Just get it away from your house.
Okay, get the leaves
from
off.
underneath your deck. You don't want anything.
Yeah, so I guess if you're just casually smoking a cigarette, or you've got a cigar and you're out on your back deck and a spark goes down, and you got a pile of dry leaves, it's just asking for problems.
Or anything like you're running your lawnmower and you hit a spark, and that happens in the fall when people try to chop up leaves.
Really?
Yeah, your lawnmower will cause a spark, or the bearings get hot, and then the leaves catch fire underneath the lawnmower.
So what can we do to mitigate that risk? Because obviously we've got to mow and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just be maintenance, right? Be mindful of conditions your equipment's in and where you're mowing. Like, does it really need to be mowed, or can you rake the leaves out and then mow?
Man, it's so much harder to rake leaves though, man. You get tired.
Yeah.
And also, I guess, kind of watching your surroundings as you're mowing, making sure that something's not starting.
Exactly.
Fire's not starting. What about carrying a fire extinguisher while you're mowing? You got a fire extinguisher in one hand, driving.
That might be
overkill.
Might be a little excessive. Having one is not bad, or garden hose nearby.
Garden hose is a good idea. Yeah. That's good. You mentioned that you could not rule out electrical on that one. When you say that, do you mean maybe like an outlet that sparked outside or something like that?
It could have been an outlet in the wall that sparked, and
is there anything,
a light fixture or anything along those lines?
Anything that we can do to mitigate that risk?
Really, that should be your breakers that end up mitigating that.
Okay.
So that should be designed into the house more or less. Nothing really we can, unless you have a breaker that's constantly tripping. Mm-hmm. Don't just keep turning it on, and if it blows again, turn it back on. And
so that's the takeaway from
if a breaker is blowing,
if it keeps blowing,
if it keeps tripping out, it's for a reason.
Get it checked out.
Yeah.
Okay. So that fire was within the last 12 months.
Yeah, it's probably 4 or 5 months ago, I think.
Okay. Louisa County, Lake Anna area, any other fires in the last year or two?
I know we've had one at Noah's Landing, and then at least one chimney fire on the lake.
So one at Noah's Landing. Noah's Landing's a subdivision also over there on the private side near Dyke 3.
Yeah, off of East Ham.
Right. What happened there?
I'm not real sure. I know from what I can recall, I remember somebody on a boat called it in saying they could see smoke, and then the fire department got there and the house was on fire.
I remember that day. I remember seeing it from a distance, black smoke coming up. Did you respond to that one too?
I did not, no.
No. Did you learn or do you recall any more about that fire? Or
no, not really.
What happened?
No.
Did they get it put out?
They did. They got it put out, but I don't recall. No, I don't remember anybody saying what caused it.
We rode by it not long after we were in that area of the lake, and it looked like the roof had been burned out pretty good, but it looked like the rest of the house had been saved.
Yeah, I never did ride out there to see what exactly was going on. It was before I was actually even qualified to investigate fires.
Who was the investigator before you?
So they had a gentleman named Mike Slimmer that did it before, and he retired a couple months before I got hired. So,
okay, before you got into the captain job.
Yep.
All right, interesting. And you mentioned there was also a chimney fire recently. Where did that happen?
In the subdivision, I think Shorewood across from Mitchell Point.
Okay, off Kentucky Springs.
Yep.
Now, Shorewood is public side.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Trying to think where.
It's tough to keep track of. Yeah, that's the public side. It was a chimney fire. Did you respond to that one?
I did not.
Okay, was that before you became?
No, that just was not available that day.
What happened with the chimney? How do chimneys catch fire? What is that? Because there's a lot of folks that have chimneys out here.
So a lot of it's if it's wood burning fire, that's mainly what causes. You're not going to get a chimney fire from your gas fireplace. Okay, it's going to be a wood burning fireplace. It's built up on the inside of the chimney that eventually will get hot enough and catch fire. We call it creosote.
Creosote is the stuff that builds up.
Yep.
What's it come from?
It's just a byproduct of combustion that builds up, it cools. It's kind of like a tar, oily product that will eventually burn.
So if I have a wood burning fireplace and I just keep using it for years and years, this creosote will build up on the inside of my chimney. Okay. And that becomes flammable.
It does.
And if I get a hot enough fire, it can be a fire fuel and it'll catch fire. And it sounds like that's what happened here.
It was.
So what do you do to prevent that?
So you can make sure your chimney's cleaned. I think it's once every year it's recommended. And then be careful what you burn. Make sure it's dry wood, not pine, hard, oaks, that type of wood.
Interesting. So keep your chimney cleaned out. Let's shift topics just a little bit.
Sure.
And it's similar to what we've been discussing, but I just want to speak more generally about kind of fires and fire causes. Can you just take 60 seconds and just talk to us about the most common causes of fires? In the U.S. period, because I'm sure that they're the same here. But
yeah. So what I see mostly is electrical issues, whether it's extension cords running too long or over running something that should be on a higher breaker. So like that, once again, trying to run a skill saw on a 15 amp breaker is not going to work out most times. It's going to try to trip that breaker, and then if you keep flipping it, eventually everything's going to get hot, and then something's going to catch fire. Another thing is leaving stuff on the stove while you're gone. Okay. Especially if you have animals, they'll hop up and turn your stove on, and next thing you know, you have a kitchen fire.
Okay. What else? I hear all the time, I read all the time that lint and failing to clean lint out of your dryer, your clothes dryer. Yeah, that's a
big one.
That's a big one.
Yeah, I know I got a new dryer not long ago. It actually warns you that
there's too much in there.
Too much lint in your pipe, and it's restricted.
Wow. Okay. So there's two places to check.
Yeah.
You got to check your lint
trap,
the lint trap, and then the pipe itself.
itself.
Interesting. And how do you get to the pipe?
Depends where it runs out of. So mine luckily runs through my crawl space. I can get in there and clean it out pretty easily. They make tools that you can, like brushes, that you can put on the end of a drill and it cleans it out. Or I think people are actually using it as a business now to clean out dryer ducts. And
interesting. It's probably a good idea. So you want to clean out the pipe and clean out the trap.
Yep.
What about candles? People leaving candles burning, things like that.
Always leaving things burning that aren't supposed to, get knocked over by, once again, animals.
So don't leave the room. Try not to leave the room, or especially the house with candles burning.
Yeah. No, definitely don't leave the house with candles burning.
What about cigarettes? We talked about that a little earlier, but
yeah, luckily cigarettes have safeties manufactured into them now. Like if you buy a pack of cigarettes in Virginia, they're got to be tested by the state fire marshal.
Oh, interesting.
Yep. So I think if you light a cigarette and just leave it burning, it has to go out within so many minutes, or I don't know the exact process, but I know there's
some safety built
into
them.
Safeties built into them.
Here at Lake Anna, there are a lot of propane fireplaces, propane tanks, propane grills, and you hear a lot of rumors and stories about propane tanks blowing up, propane tank injuries. You hear about propanes in RVs. Can you talk about, are those risks real? What can we do to mitigate that?
Yeah, definitely. The explosion part is real. If you have any propane or natural gas burning inside, wood stove, fireplace, you need to have a carbon monoxide detector on top of your smoke detector. That's in case.
Why do you need a carbon monoxide detector? Spell that out.
Yeah, that's what they call a silent killer. You can't see, taste, or smell carbon monoxide, but by the time you know something's going on, you've already gone too far, you're sick. Or
carbon monoxide is a product of what?
It's a byproduct of what they call incomplete combustion. So it's just like off-gassing of the fire of propane.
Okay, anytime propane is burning.
Yep.
So if I have a propane fireplace or potentially a propane gas grill, that could give it off?
Well, hopefully your gas grill's outside, but if you're doing anything...
I mean, like propane cooktop.
Yeah, cooktop, yep, inside.
Yep. So that could give off carbon monoxide too.
Yeah, it could.
So you want a carbon monoxide detector in your house? All right. Is there a good place to place those?
I would just, whatever the manufacturer recommends on your...
Good answer. That's a good answer.
They're not like smoke detectors where they, smoke rises. Not all the time does carbon monoxide rise. So,
okay. What about space heaters? You hear a lot about space heaters. I know some people like space heaters. My kids love space heaters. So does my wife.
Yeah,
they love having space. So apart from driving up your electric bill hundreds of dollars a month, what else about space heaters? Are they? You hear horror stories about them, and I think a lot of them are probably, the older space heaters. They fall over and they catch on fire. And things.
Yeah, luckily, like if they fall over now, they're supposed to have most of them have a switch on them that will turn them off. But the biggest thing is pushing them too close or sliding a chair, like in the office, back onto one and dropping paper on them, stuff like that. When they're
something making contact. Yeah. Or a blanket or something going up against it while it's on, and then whoosh. So if you have a space heater, just keep it away from things.
Keep it clear.
Yeah, I think ours, if an animal knocks it over or something, it's done. If you pick it up, it turns off.
Yep.
So they seem to be pretty good in that regard. But they do get hot.
Yeah, they do.
They get hot. And how often are you hearing about grills, like barbecue grills? Catching fires, causing fires. Are there risks there we should be thinking about out at the lake?
We get a couple a year. The biggest thing, once again, is make sure they're not up against your house.
Keep it away from your house.
Yeah, grills get hot anyways, so if you don't want them against your vinyl siding.
Right.
But also, cleaning them out. If you cook burgers on them today and you go out there to cook steaks tomorrow, you're probably going to burn the grease off at some point. So that's when the fire starts, is when you get the grease fire inside the grill. If a clean grill is not going to burn.
So keep it away from the house.
Yep.
Clean it. And then the propane, turn the propane tank
off when you're not using it.
How risky are the tanks themselves in terms of exploding and things like that? Are they
very little? There's safeties built into the valving, and of course you got the handle that's actually protecting the valve if you drop it.
Interesting.
So it would take somebody hitting it with something that's to puncture the actual tank to let the gas out.
Wow. One time I made the mistake of I lit the burners and then opened the top instead of opening the top and then lighting the burners. It was a summer day.
That's what happened to your hair.
I didn't exactly. That's what. That's the punchline. That's how I lost it all. Similarly, though, it I was just distracted and just did it backwards, and turned on the the burners, and a couple of seconds later, I opened up the top and then I pressed the button, and man, it sounded like a shotgun.
Yep.
It sounded like a shotgun went off, and burned the hair on my chest. I was saying, man, I think I just dodged a bullet. But and the hair. Yeah. Before that, I had long Fabio-like hair, and now it's never came back. Okay, so just in terms of general prevention, what are some steps you'd recommend around, here at the lake or anywhere, houses, boats, things like that, to mitigate fires, prevent fires, like smoke detectors?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing in
fire
houses,
extinguishers.
In houses, smoke detectors.
Okay.
Having a fire extinguisher in your kitchen, garage, anywhere that you think a fire could break out.
So if I turn around in my kitchen and there's a fire on my cooktop, you hear debates about what do you do there?
Yeah. Well, if it's in a pan and you can put a top on it, you put the top on it.
Take the air out.
Yep.
If I don't have a lid,
baking soda or a fire extinguisher.
not water.
Nope.
Because
Grease fire. Once you throw water on it, the water wants to boil, and then you have little balls of fire everywhere, and
all right,
probably get burnt. And
all right. So
spread the fire.
So don't throw water on a fire in your kitchen or a cooking. If you have a cooking related fire, no water.
No water.
Just makes it worse.
Yep.
How often are you guys, we've talked about house fires out here at Lake Anna. Are you seeing and responding to boat fires? You see much of that?
Not very often. In my 15 years, I can only think of a handful that have happened on our side of the lake, that is.
And do you recall what the cause of those would have been? A boat fire?
No, I mean, most of those vehicular fires are kind of hard. They're always rolled back to some sort of mechanical failure.
Okay.
More likely.
So just maintain your boat.
Yeah.
Don't do stupid stuff on it.
Yeah.
Have flammable, chemicals, liquids, things like that. Follow the maintenance recommendations.
Yep. Keep the gas where it needs to be and make sure everything's running right. And
what about boat house fires? Do you respond to many of those?
Luckily not in Louisa. I have not heard of any.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. These are good answers. And in terms of, again, prevention and fire mitigation at a boathouse, you think the best thing, just have fire extinguishers down there? Don't be dumb.
Yeah, I mean, it's the biggest thing is fire extinguishers. Once again, where you're storing your fuels.
Where's the gas?
Yeah, you don't want your gas locked up in a closet that's airtight.
Because
if that gas puts off fumes and eventually that gets to the right mixture, that if something were to spark or
the fumes can ignite.
Yep, exactly. And then
so best to have them maybe out back beside the boathouse or in an open area.
Outside in an open area in a ventilated room, somewhere like that.
Okay. Shifting gears just a bit. Louisa County, we're obviously here. We're at the lake, but this is a rural area. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I would characterize the Louisa County Fire and EMS as rural. It's a rural department.
Yeah, that's good description of our EMS and fire department.
Versus city. Are there differences between how kind of a rural operation is run and operates versus a city?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for us is time, right? From the time you call 911 to the time we get to you might be longer than what you would.
Oh, your response time.
Your response time would be longer than what would happen in the city.
Is that why? Just space just spread out?
Just, we have 7 departments throughout the whole county, so just because you know that there's an ambulance normally in Mineral doesn't mean that that's the closest one at that time. We run about 8,000 fire and EMS calls a year.
Okay.
For the county.
Fire and EMS.
Yeah. They might be busy and the next closest one is coming.
Okay. From a long way away, it could be. So response time could be shorter.
Yeah. Our goal, every call in the county gets a response of less than 15 minutes is what our goal is.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. That'd be quick. And again, you have 7 stations spread out throughout the county.
Yep.
But Louisa is a big county.
It is.
I mean, how long is it? I mean, it's 30 miles or something. I mean,
it runs from Gum Springs on the interstate, which is the 159 to the 132-ish on the interstate.
Mm-hmm. Past Zion, out going towards Fluvanna, towards Charlottesville. You guys have a big area to cover.
Yes.
So going back to differences, so response time is a difference in a rural county. You've got more area to cover. Yep. In a city, do they tend to have fewer volunteers and more full-time, or is that a kind of a similar breakdown?
I'm not sure. I think most of your cities are mainly career departments nowadays. I know some of them still do have volunteers in them, but I don't know if it compares to what we have or not.
They probably have bigger budgets than you guys.
Probably.
I would imagine.
Yeah, a little bit.
How are you guys funded?
So we're funded through the department is funded through taxpayers, and then the volunteer departments also get donations.
Okay. So, and taxpayers, I imagine you receive county money, but probably you get some state subsidy.
We do. We get what's called a 4 for Life, which comes off of your registration to your vehicle.
Okay.
It's not called for life anymore. I have to, but it's a EMS to help with the EMS side of the house, and then fire programs gives us money, which is based off insurance rates for the area or some magic formula that they have.
Okay. How's your funding level now? You feel like where it need to be, but you guys can always use more?
I asked the chief that one. Everybody can use more, right? But
yeah.
It's expensive to run the fire department.
I bet it is. Out here in a kind of a rural setting, at the lake setting, from a training perspective, do you all have, any types of training that you undergo that, say, a city wouldn't? Or is the training really
it's the same. Luckily, the state has a statewide standard for training. So there's very little in-house. Well, there's a lot of in-house training, but very little of it is made in-house, right? It's all accredited. It's all like if we have a certification by the end of it, it's been tested by other people, and we don't have to take it in county. We can go somewhere else and take it and have the same certificate that we need to do it.
Okay. So who operates, for instance, the boat that's ready to go?
So they have a group of guys and girls that have trained especially for that assignment.
Okay. So they have that special training for that. And is that training that's unique to Lake Anna, or is that a special just water-based training
just
up to state standards?
Yep, water-based standards. We do some, of course, to familiarize yourself with the area, there's in-house training, but that's more of getting out there and driving around and, finding those places where people call, Cocktail Cove, the Sandbar stuff, the common names of places.
Okay. And now I'd just like to take a quick break to provide an update on the Lake Anna real estate market. As of today, April 3rd, 2023, there are a total of 49 homes for sale here at Lake Anna, a total of 49. That's a much lower number of homes for sale than we had before the pandemic. This number has been increasing since then. We were down in the 20s at one point. Now up to 49 is good, but historically it's still low, much lower than it was pre-pandemic. This also means homes are going to sell more quickly because there's fewer of them and they're going to be selling for top dollar. Just to break down the 49, there are a total of 29 that are waterfront, and the remaining 20 are water access. So 29 waterfront homes right there touching the water. They've got their own shoreline, and then 20 that are water access. So they're close to the water, but they're not actually touching the water. To address the 29 waterfront lake houses for sale here at the lake, only 18 of those actually exist. The remaining 11 are to-be-built new construction homes. Either they haven't started yet or they've just begun construction. But only 18 of those actually exist, and the average price of waterfront homes for sale here at Lake Anna right now is $1.56 million. $1.56 million. And for the remaining 20, the 20 water access homes, the average price is about $580,000. So what does all this data mean to you? Well, if you're thinking about selling, the low supply of homes is going to help you. Low supply equals higher demand. Higher demand means top dollar, higher sales prices, and your sales are going to happen more quickly. The average time it takes a house to go on the market right now here at Lake Anna is 59 days. That was for last month, the month of March. So if you're a seller, still a great time to sell. If you're thinking about buying, there's a lot more inventory to choose from now than there was a year or two ago during the pandemic. Again, there are 49 to choose from right now. It is a far less competitive market as a buyer now than it was 6 months or a year ago. However, the bad news as a buyer is the interest rates are higher, a bit higher than they were last year. Last year at some point, they were in the 3s. Now you're looking probably in the 6s. But the good news if you're a buyer is the industry experts are predicting that the interest rates are on the way back down. In the next year or so, they should be back down in the 4s or 5s. So you could buy something now and then refinance with your lender to decrease your monthly payment. To those of you that are not buying or selling, you're sitting in a really good spot because the Lake Anna market here we expect the property values to continue to appreciate, the value to continue to increase, and this is mainly due to the existing low supply of homes, and again creating the higher demand and the upward pressure on prices. But if you have any questions about Lake Anna real estate, my contact information is below. Let's talk about medical emergencies and medical responses for a minute. Typically, if there's an emergency call, is it coming through the same kind of 911 dispatch that you were talking about earlier?
Yep. So if you dial 911 in Louisa County, it goes one place. So whether you need the fire department, EMS, or sheriff, it all goes through dispatch. Going to the same dispatch center.
Okay. And if it's a medical emergency, what's being sent out? Who goes?
Depending on what it is, if it's just a regular run, what we're calling like the sick person. So you're calling because you just need to go in to figure out why you don't feel good, right? It's just going to be a medic unit more than likely. But if it's a cardiac arrest or some major incident, there's going to be at least an engine and a medic unit, and maybe the battalion chief come in.
Okay. This could be a dumb question, but why is a fire engine going if I call and I'm having chest pain? Why does a fire truck show up at my house?
So it all depends. Like, it could be what level of care is on the ambulance versus what's on the engine. So
just the skill set of the people.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just because you're on the engine, you may be the paramedic for the day.
Okay.
We do run what we call trauma units, which is the advanced level EMT. They can do about 75% of the call volume that the medic can do, but the medic can do that last 25%. So it's the cardiac calls, it's the cardiac arrest, chest pains, some difficulty breathing-ins, just depending on what needs to be done on the call, gets you the higher level of care.
Okay. So I think a lot of people underestimate, what can happen in an ambulance or a med unit.
Yep.
I think there's a thought that it's almost just like a medical Uber. It's just your Lyft. Can you talk for a minute about an ambulance? What's in it?
Sure.
What's in it? Typically what the setup is, and what type of skill set it brings. What type of procedures can be performed and things like that. I mean, obviously you could spend an hour answering that question, but just, in kind of generally speaking in layman's terms.
Yeah. So the back of an ambulance is set up not much, but different than a regular box truck, but it has bench where you can sit, and there's a place to lock a gurney down, cot down where the patient would sit. Equipment wise, it's pretty much a mobile emergency room.
A mobile emergency room.
We have drugs that we're able to give to prevent some things and to help with some situations, cardiac arrest, breathing problems, anaphylaxis. There's a lot of drugs in there that we can use to help you. We have a defibrillator and a monitor, so we can run 12 leads, which look at your heart. We can monitor your breathing. We can monitor how well you're oxygenating. We can check your blood pressure. We can do about anything in that ER can do. We just don't have a doctor in the back. Okay.
But it sounds like, 90% plus of the procedures that can be performed in an emergency room can actually be performed right in the back of an ambulance.
Yeah, but if it's life-saving and needs to be done, we can do it in the back of the ambulance.
You can. And I imagine that, for some or all of the drugs, the narcotics that would need to be administered and things like that, those are only for, the advanced responders, the paramedics or the intermediates, but are doing that. But a lot can be done, in the back of an ambulance. And the people that are responding have gone through a considerable amount of training.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Talk about, what's the typical training pipeline for a paramedic?
So when I took paramedic, it was a college course. It was 1 day a week for 2 years. And on top of that...
For 2 years?
For 2 years, yeah.
Wow.
And then on top of that was clinicals. It was hours in the ER, hours on the ambulance, hours in the hospital, different floors, just to get your knowledge base up. We spent hours in the OR just intubating people to be skillful in that, because that's a what we call a high risk, low frequency. So we don't do it very often, but when we do need to do it, we need to do it right.
Right. And it can be potentially dangerous.
Yep.
What is intubation?
So that's us putting a tube in and breathing for you.
Someone's having trouble breathing, you can help them breathe that way. Right. And you're a paramedic.
I am.
How many paramedics are working in Louisa County right now, roughly?
Every day there's at least 4 on, and then there's always extra. So,
I mean, you think we've got a dozen, that are here that work? I think you said there's 78 full-time employees.
So our staffing level, we have to have four medics on at any time.
On live
on
at
duty.
any time.
Yep.
Wow.
But without looking at who our people are, and I couldn't tell you.
That's okay. More than 4.
Yeah.
And then what's an intermediate training pipeline like?
So it's the same, just a few months shorter, probably 6 months shorter to a year shorter.
Okay. And the EMTs, what are they? What's their training like? And
so they're the basic. So they're getting the knowledge, the base knowledge. They're learning. I won't say the simple stuff because it's not, but it's your blood pressures. It's your, hey, this is wrong. We probably should look at this, that type of thing. Trying to start to put the pieces together to figure out the right way to go.
In terms of who responds, I guess that's the information that's coming from dispatch.
Yep.
And they'll decide, does a medic need to go? Or
so they have.
Does a medic always go? Sometimes will an EMT just respond sometimes?
So it depends on, when we mark up a unit, we mark up, so like if you ever listen to Fire and EMS, because you can listen online to our dispatch center. So if you hear like rescue, like say 3-1, because that's the Lake Anna station. 3 would be Lake Anna, 1 was the unit. So rescue 3-1 is the EMT level. So if it's a sick call, the rescue unit may go by itself. But
what's a sick call?
Just like you don't feel good, like stomach hurts or abdominal pains.
Okay. Sick, as opposed to I can't breathe or
chest hurts,
potentially heart attack.
Not breathing,
Or I fell and busted my head open, something like that.
And then a trauma unit is that middle level, that advanced. And then a medic would be intermediate or paramedic. So that's how we distinguish between the units.
And that's just a point I want to really drive home here is that, you guys train for years. And there's also ongoing training requirements, I bet. And as I said earlier, I think that there's a misperception. I think the value of the skill set that you all bring to skills is commonly underestimated, that you bring to scenes. I think it's important for everyone to know that when an ambulance shows up, it's basically, especially if there's a medic there, it's basically an emergency room that's right there. Bringing this to Lake Anna, what are the more common medical emergencies that you have seen over the years associated with the lake?
So a lot of it's seasonal. So in the winter time when the weather's not as nice and not everybody's out, it's a lot of the medical calls. It's the chest pain, shortness of breath, sick calls, because flu-like symptoms is what we would call sick call. Like if you call and say, hey, I think I got the flu, but I can't get myself to the ER, or I'm, nauseous and vomiting, that's all sick call to us. That's probably the big things we see in the wintertime. In the summer, it gets more of the traumatic injuries. It's the falls. It's the, car accidents. Just as weather gets nice and people move outside, and of course, you're more likely to hurt yourself when you're out doing something.
What about medical calls to the lake itself, out on the water? Do you ever respond to anything out on the water? Injuries, boats and swimming and things like that?
Yeah, occasionally we have a few a year probably out on the lake.
What's an example or two of those?
We've seen a prop injury from a boat. I've seen people fall off.
When you say prop, you mean like a propeller injury from a boat?
Yep.
Talk about that for a minute. I mean, the more layers you can peel back here, I think it helps folks avoid getting hit by a prop.
Yeah. So this instant was somebody was backing a boat up and didn't realize there was somebody behind them and backed into somebody and they cut their leg up.
Propeller spinning.
Yep.
So always know, when there are people around you.
Absolutely.
In fact.
And even when you think that propeller's not spinning, it probably is.
My rule of thumb is just have the boat off when people are in the water.
Yeah.
And you got 8 people, make sure you count. You've got all 8.
Yep.
And then start her up.
Before anybody jumps off or gets on, make sure the boat's off or good and well that it's in neutral. Or
I don't hear a lot about a lot of boat accidents out here at the lake. I mean, every once in a while you hear about them, but
yeah, occasionally we get one. A lot of times it's we had one last year after the fireworks.
What, boat collision?
Mm-hmm.
Anybody hurt?
Not that I can recall, but I'm not
100%. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fireworks is a lot of boats out.
Yep.
A lot of boats, and it's dark, of course. I like to stay on the shore for that. Other lake-specific, water-specific medical emergencies that you've heard about or responded to in your professional?
A lot of times it's the people trying to swim without life vests that get tired or inhale some water, and it possibly could end up to drowning, but doesn't most times.
So wear your life jackets.
Yeah.
Wear your life jackets. Here at Lake Anna, there are a lot of bridges over water. Ever get emergencies out there on bridges, near bridges?
Occasionally. Yeah, we've had a guy jump off that judged the landing wrong and ended up on the shore instead of in the water. Yeah.
So he jumped, but not into the water.
Not into the water.
Wow. Probably alcohol involved there too. How often are you guys ever responding to, again, someone's, slips and falls off a dock or had too much to drink, jumping off the roof? A lot of the boathouses here, these are great boathouses, but they've got multiple levels, and it's fun to jump off. But I imagine you're responding to injury calls on those sometimes.
It happens some. Luckily, not as much as it could, but it does happen.
Good that it doesn't happen as much. You guys ever respond to fishing-related injuries?
I had
got a hook in my finger.
Had a couple.
Have you really?
Yeah.
What were those?
I had one in the foot, and unfortunately, we can't remove those. So
a hook in the foot?
Yeah.
Why can't you remove it?
Because it's considered an impaled object, and we cannot remove. That's an invasive
procedure.
Yeah.
It's got to be done by a doc.
Done by a doc.
Wow. So if I step on a hook and I can't get it out, I got to go to the ER.
Got to go to the ER.
All right. Well, that's a nice segue. Got to go to the ER. I want to talk about transportation.
Okay.
So if I've got a hook in my foot,
I
can't get it out, you can't try, and I'm here on the private side, where are you taking me?
It depends really on the lake, because we can go to Spotsylvania Regional, which is just there in Thornburg, not too far.
Okay.
Go to Culpeper. That's not terribly far up the road.
So you can't, for a minor injury, you can't just take me to a station.
Nope.
And just say, give me your foot and
nope.
Pull it on out. Okay. So as a real estate agent here, that's a question I get a lot. Where are the major medical, centers nearby? Where are the minor ones? So what are the major ones?
So we have three major ones we transport to throughout the county. It's UVA, VCU, and actually it's more now because I keep forgetting that Henrico Doctors is now a trauma center, and then Mary Washington is a trauma center as well.
Okay. Now, just so the listeners know where these are, we've got VCU is Richmond.
Yep, downtown Richmond.
And then we've got Mary Washington is on the way.
Yep, in Fredericksburg.
And then Henrico, also Richmond.
Yep.
Do you ever transport to Martha Jefferson?
We do, but that's more of a minor. Like if it's
minors.
If it's trauma or anything that they don't think they can handle, they'll send us to UVA.
So fish hook in the foot, I might go to Martha Jefferson.
Might go to Martha Jefferson, yeah.
Or Spotsylvania.
Yep. We can't take you to freestanding. It's like Short Pump and Lee's Hill that's up there.
You can transport to those.
As long as they're considered an ER by the state, we can take you.
Okay. So you can't transport me to an urgent care or something like that. Okay. So minor injuries, we're going to go to one of those. And I guess major injuries, we got to go to a trauma center. Yeah. Major medical issues.
Unless we need
unless
we need to stop somewhere closer because we're trying to stabilize you. So if we're in the back of the ambulance and we don't think we can make it to VCU, we may stop in Short Pump just so the doctors there can try to stabilize you long enough.
Oh, okay. If you've got a doctor on the way or something. Do you all work with aircraft? Medical
do.
Response. What type?
So we use helicopters a lot.
Okay. You hear them talk Pegasus and Life Flight and those. So How do those work?
So depending on the call, it's up to the provider to request.
The provider being like the medic on scene or something?
Yep. Whoever's on scene that can see the patient. Well, a lot of times we pre-alert them because it's a flight time, right? If we can get them in the air coming to us, that cuts down their flight time from 15 minutes to a couple minutes on the ground.
So you might even pre-alert them before you get there.
Yeah, a lot of our dispatches will have a helicopter pre-alerted.
Okay, and then you're on the way.
Yep.
Now you're a medic.
Yep.
You know what types of factors are you get to a scene? Let's say a bad scene, bad car accident, or someone's having. I don't know. What types of things might cause you to consider calling for an aircraft as opposed to just an ambulance ride?
Yeah. So for me, it's always your patient condition, but it's do they have something I don't? Whether it's we're going to intubate this patient, and we don't carry ventilators on the ambulance, so the helicopter has a ventilator, so we won't have to bag them. They can get better care with the ventilator. They also have ultrasound, so if we think it's some sort of traumatic injury and they need the ultrasound to check for blood or other things. They also carry blood products, so if you're bleeding out, they can give you blood.
They can bring blood.
Yeah, we don't carry blood on our ambulances, really, and it's time. From here to VCU is probably an hour and 20 minutes, depending on traffic, and they can be there in probably 20 minutes from the time they lift off.
Yeah, I was going to say that's probably one of your biggest factors. Because all the things you just listed, blood, ventilators, VCU has all those. UVA has all those. But what you may not have at that moment is time. If they need to be there in 15 minutes, then I'm going to call them. So I imagine pre-alerting is really important.
It is.
Because otherwise you could be sitting there waiting for 30 minutes for them to even get here, and you could have been halfway there in an ambulance.
Yeah, luckily we're surrounded pretty well by helicopters. So
where are they coming from?
So we have one in Charlottesville, which is Pegasus. We have one in Culpeper, one in Spotsylvania, one in Hanover, one in Chesterfield, and then two in Chesterfield.
Are there ever occasions where you might say, okay, I need an aircraft, and they say, sorry, it can't come?
Yep, all the time.
What would cause that?
Mainly weather, or if they're busy. Weather and busy is the two biggest things.
Okay, so it can't fly in bad weather.
Well, it's all about how high the clouds are, and of course, if it's icing, just like
right. So they don't want to fly IFR; they want to fly out of the clouds, below the clouds.
Yep. They got to fly VFR unless they're going to an airport, and then they can fly. Sometimes can fly IFR.
Interesting. Yeah, you hear about helicopter crashes from time to time in bad weather. They're pushing it.
So they just had one not long ago in North Carolina, I think.
Really? Weather?
I hadn't seen what caused that one, but
wow. And you said that the other reason you may not be able to get an aircraft is just busy.
Yep.
The aircraft are all taken somewhere else. So when an aircraft shows up, who's on an aircraft?
So it all depends on how it's set up, but normally in Virginia, it's a pilot, a nurse, and a paramedic.
3 people.
Yeah.
And similar setup as an ambulance on the inside, but with some extras.
And smaller.
And smaller. Wow, the inside is smaller than an ambulance. Wow, so tight quarters.
Oh yeah.
But they can bring blood and
they have blood. They have ventilators. They have some other critical drugs that they can give that we don't have in the ambulance. Stuff that mainly needs to be refrigerated, and because we can't, we don't use blood enough in the field to go bad, and we don't really have a good place to keep it stored in the ambulance.
Interesting.
Have to put a refrigerator in there. We don't have that yet.
Yep. So a minute ago you said that calls always start, a 911 call always goes through dispatch. It always goes through dispatch. Calling 911, I think sometimes people wonder, I'm in this given situation, should I call 911? Or, does this situation rise to the level of 911? Do you have any advice on, when it's a good time to dial it or not? Maybe use a different number. Is there 911 abuse out there apart from the kids prank calling?
Yeah,
what are your thoughts there?
So my thought on 911 is it's not my emergency to judge whether you called 911 or not, right? So just because it's not an emergency to me doesn't mean it's not your emergency.
Sure.
So that's a big thing. I like to think. I mean, at one time, I thought, well, this really didn't count for 911, right?
Mm-hmm.
Stubbed my toe, but hey, that could be your worst day, right?
So it sounds like your message is don't hesitate.
No, don't hesitate.
Don't hesitate. Call 911.
If you think if it's an emergency to you, dial it. And if we can come help, then that's what we'll do.
What if it's not an emergency to me?
Yeah.
What if I say, I don't want to clog up the 911 call, but I want to talk to somebody now. What number should I call?
Yeah, there's a dispatch non-emergency number. It's 540-967-1234, and it's
540-967-1234. Yep. Everyone should have that in their phones. So if you're not going to call 911, call that. So that's non-emergent dispatch.
Yep.
Is what that is. Okay.
And that's busy. That's a busy line too. So.
And that could be fire-related, law-related, anything. It goes to that same dispatch.
Yep.
It's just non-emergent. Okay. What about CPR? I want to talk about CPR for a minute. Could you just take 60 seconds and just explain what it is?
Sure. It's called cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Just like you've seen on the movies, it's chest compressions. It's trying to get the blood moving around the body to oxygenate your vital organs while your heart's not beating until somebody can get to you to try to get your heart beating again.
Life-saving techniques.
Yep.
With your own body, your hands, your mouth.
Your hands. Well, not even mouth anymore. So all hands only.
All hands. Interesting. How long does it take to get CPR training? Is that kind of a day-long course you can go?
Yeah, I think if you go through the first aid CPR course, it's probably about 8 hours long. But if you don't have it and you call 911 and somebody's in cardiac arrest, the dispatch center will walk you through CPR.
Oh, really?
On the phone.
How to do it out there. That's awesome. If I'm here at Lake Anna and I want to learn CPR, I want to learn it because I've got kids or, where I work, who should I contact?
So Parks and Rec offers CPR.
Really? Louisa County Parks and Rec?
From time to time. And then some of the volunteers will put on CPR classes for the public.
So what's new and upcoming at Lake Anna in terms of EMS? There's some stuff on the horizon, right?
There is, yeah.
This is big. What's going on?
New firehouse.
New firehouse. Okay, where's it going?
Next to the food line on New Bridge.
New Bridge Road, near the food line. It's been a long time coming.
It has.
There's been lots of fundraising events around and things like that. What specifically is going in there?
So starting, it's going to be a medic unit, which is an ambulance engine and a tanker, and then there are plans for other things in the future.
Why did we pick that spot?
Mainly it's a growth area. So quite a bit of our calls are out there already, and once again to get that response time down.
Mm-hmm. That's right by the lake.
It is.
That is right by the food line, right by the lake. That's a stone's throw from the 208 bridge.
Yep.
Sitting right. It's public side, but I imagine. Well, you tell me what's going to be that service area, or I guess it kind of depends on what's going on.
Yeah. So the way it's looking like it's be about just like the Elk Creek store, back to 522 Dickinson store, and down Mansfield a little ways. Okay. Awesome. And then everything north of that.
Okay. And that goal being cutting down response times.
Yep.
Now, the 208 bridge, as soon as you go over the 208 bridge, you're in Spotsy.
Yep.
Are there occasions where counties help each other out?
Absolutely.
Okay. How does that work? If someone's busy, the dispatch will call you guys and say, hey, we need help? Yeah,
so there's two different ways. We have what they call automatic aid and then mutual aid. We do have one station that's automatic aid right now, and that's Gordonsville. So they have a first due in the county. If there's a call in that area, they'll call Orange. Orange dispatches Gordonsville, and Gordonsville sends a unit to Louisa. And then another way would be mutual aid. So that would be, our battalion chief or units responding to a call and say, hey, can you call them? Their unit's probably closer than ours, or hey, we're busy, we need help with an ambulance.
So if I'm someone who wanted to get involved, I see new bridge being built. I'm excited. I want to contribute to the community. I want to help. What are some ways, I can contribute, not just financially, but I mean, how can I help the community? How can I involve from a fire and EMS perspective? I don't want to apply for a job. Let's say I've got my own job, but, I want to help out. What can I do?
You can volunteer to either be fire, EMS, or both.
You can volunteer to be fire or EMS.
Yep.
Let's say that I have zero training and I want to volunteer on the medical side. What's that going to look like?
So it's going to look like starting off, be taking the CPR class and getting involved with the department. That being one of the 3 volunteer rescue squads.
And the CPR classes. So first I would apply.
Yep.
And if I was interested in applying, where do I go to find the application?
So we can, on our website at the county, I can send you the link to put into the...
Sure.
And then...
but it's just the Louisa County website.
Or one of those volunteer fire departments. Rescue squads have their own websites.
Oh, they have their own websites.
Yep.
Great. Okay. So you can, pretty easy, but yeah, we'll put a link in the show notes, but you can just Google it and just find it. And there's an application there.
Yep. And we also have a position that's called the Volunteer Recruitment and Retention Officer.
Okay.
So that's a grant funded position that's to help us get volunteers to help us provide service to the county. You
guys need volunteers now?
Absolutely. Always
need them. So I would apply, and then I could get, you said it would start with CPR training.
Normally that's how it starts. And after you get that, you can start riding on the ambulance.
Really? Wow. All right. And then after that, would I need to get, an EMT or something? Or are there volunteers who are just simply CPR trained and that's it?
There's some volunteers that are just simply CPR and what we call EVOC, which is a driver.
Oh, okay.
So you can just drive the ambulance or you can work your way up to paramedic.
Is there special training for driving the ambulance?
There is. There's what we call a emergency vehicle operators course.
Okay.
And that does everything from your SUVs that you see your command and staff units riding in to all the way up to the big ladder trucks.
Wow.
Different levels for that.
Would you get in trouble if you drove the ambulance, 100 miles an hour or something?
Probably.
That's not good.
No.
And then, so if I wanted to, I could go on and continue getting and be a volunteer EMT.
Yep.
And that would take, how long? Let's assume that I have a full-time job. But I want to do this. How is there a way with the fire department they can?
Yes, some of the 2 of the volunteer stations currently are putting on EMT courses. That's I think nowadays it's all hybrid, or not all hybrid, but part of it is online. So you can do it at your pace, and then a couple Saturdays, and a few months later you can have your EMT pass the test.
Wow. Okay. So there's a way to do it. If I have a job around on the edges, nights, weekends, online, things like that, and then I can be an EMT.
Absolutely.
And then I can go volunteer. Wow. Are there any, forgive me if this is a dumb question, are there any volunteer paramedics? Or are those all guys? They're all paid?
No, there's volunteer paramedics.
Wow. Okay. Is that also training that the fire department would provide all the way through?
It's a little more intense than that, of course. Not all that's online, but...
it's more formal.
Yeah, more formal
training.
So,
but is there a pipeline that if does the fire department put volunteers through paramedic training?
They will.
Okay, and that's all again. Just submit your application and just getting going.
Yep.
So you've been at this for a long time. Why did you get into this?
Runs in the family.
What do you mean?
So I'm 3rd generation firefighter in the county. So my grandfather was part of the fire department. My dad still is part of the fire department.
Grandfather as in James?
No, my other one on Dad's side.
Okay.
And then I'm now in it.
Wow. So James never did fire, but your dad, I know, was always, and Garnet Jimmy did.
Garnet and Jimmy both. Right.
And were they doing it before your dad?
Probably all about the same time.
Around the same time. Yeah, because I remember growing up around, being around you. We go back, a long ways. In fact, I think I held you as a baby.
Probably.
I wasn't much older. I think I dropped you as a baby a few times. That explains a lot. So it runs in the family. For you. You ever get Samantha out there doing anything?
Nope.
Nothing. She's at the tap house. Are there other ways that people can support Louisa County, Lake Anna Fire EMS?
Yeah, I mean, there's always, the opportunity to donate. Mineral is getting ready to have their fair in a couple weeks, I think.
So there's an annual
Fireman's Fair.
Fireman's Fair in Mineral.
If you come by,
Awesome.
Come buy a corn dog. That helps the fire department out.
Okay, so all that money goes to the fire department. That's great. That's great. Do you know when that is, or where people can find that info?
Not off the top of my head.
Where can they look?
Probably the Mineral Fire Department's Facebook would be the best place to go.
But that's coming up soon.
Yeah, it should be.
What kind of stuff they have out there?
It's amusement rides and
it's like a carnival.
Food, yeah, carnival.
Can I get cotton candy out there?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, most importantly, what if someone wants to get baseball coaching from the great legendary Tommy Luck? Who do they need to contact?
Yeah, you gotta wait till after tax season.
How do they learn to throw his wicked slider? So we got to wait until after April 15th.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for being here, Timmy.
Not a problem.
I really appreciate your time, and hopefully this will get some folks involved.
Yeah.
Is there contact info for you? Do you have an office number? If someone wants to get in touch with you and talk to you about your job or ask you questions, do you have a number that we can put out there?
Yeah, our office number is 540-967-3491.
Awesome. What about an email?
It's tluck@louisa.org.
Awesome. It was great seeing you.
You too.
Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate your time, man. We'll see you out there.
All right.